Psalms 27. And that says, the Lord is my life and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? For when the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumble and fail. Hallelujah. Hallelujah to that. Hallelujah, Lord God. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, Lord. Whom shall we fear? Thank you, Lord God. Hallelujah, Lord God. That you are the only one that we have to fear, Lord God. That we do not have to fear the enemy, Lord God. That we fear you, Lord God, because we know about your glory. We know about your holiness, Lord God. We know, Lord God, that we don't have to fear you, Lord God, of being scared and afraid that you're going to do something bad to us. But we yes, Lord, we can fear you, Lord God, with respect, Lord God. Hallelujah, Lord God. We can fear you knowing that you love and that you care about us, Lord God. Hallelujah, knowing that you want the best for us, God. Hallelujah, Lord God. We come this morning, Heavenly Father, to give you the praise, to give you the glory, to give you the honor, Lord God, because we know that it all belongs to you, Lord God. So we come today saying thank you, Heavenly Father. Thank you for goodness this morning. Thank you for mercy this morning. Thank you for your grace, Lord God. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Because of your grace, Lord God, that we are here today, Lord God. Because of your grace and your mercy, Lord God, that we are here today. Not because of anything that we've done so good or so great, Lord God, but because of your goodness, because of your grace, because of your mercy, because of your compassion, Lord God, because of your long suffering. Hallelujah, Lord God, that we are here today, Lord God, because that you are still breathing through us, Lord God, is the reason why we are here today. So we come today, Lord God, we're saying, God, have your way. As we move ourselves out of your way, Lord God, you come, Lord God, and do what you need to do and what you have to do in this place today. In Jesus' name, hallelujah. Yes, Lord, we thank you, Lord God. We praise you, Lord. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah, Lord God. Good morning, everybody. I'm your pulpit conductor for today. I'm Prophet Bobby. We'd just like to welcome everyone here this morning to praise God together. Hallelujah. That we're going to give God our best today. Yes. What he likes. God loves praise. Yes. Hallelujah. So Lord, we come to give you that praise today. In the name of Jesus, we thank you, Lord God. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. If it hadn't been for you, Lord, where would we be? Thank you, Lord. So at this time, we're going to get ready to do our vision. Could we stand, please? So our vision says, to be the best trained in the world. Our vision, our mission. Okay, what did Jesus say in John 12:32? It says, if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. So what are we going to do in this place today? Lift him up, lift him up, lift Jesus up. Today, one more time, Lord God, in your presence. get our eyes off ourselves, get our eyes on Jesus, and praise the Lord.
Yes. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Woo. Praise you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Give you praise.
strength that comes from God's Spirit. Strength within us, strength within, strength to arise, strength to walk in victory, strength to conquer, to be more than conquerors through Christ Jesus. Hallelujah. Here we are, Lord, your spiritual waiters. We are your spiritual waiters, waiting to the hearkening of your voice. We wait upon you, Lord. We wait upon you, Lord. Hallelujah, Lord. Praise you, Jesus. We serve you, Lord. Out of a pure heart, God. says in verse 12, saying with a loud voice, "Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power, riches and wisdom, strength and honor, glory and blessings." And every creature which is in heaven, somebody say in heaven, on the earth, say on the earth, hallelujah, under the earth, and such as are in the sea, all those big porpoises and sharks and fish and all those different creatures are worshiping God in the sea. He said in the heaven, on the earth, and under the earth, and even in the sea, all the creation is worshiping God. The trees are worshiping God. The wind is worshiping God. The grass is worshiping God. The flowers are worshiping God. All creation, all creatures are worshiping God. How much more should we? Come on, church. How much more should we be worshiping God? Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah to the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb. Hallelujah. Worthy is the Lamb.
Worthy is the Lamb. Hallelujah. Worthy is the Lamb. Hallelujah. Worthy is the Lamb that was Hallelujah.
If we don't praise him, the rocks will cry out. Come on, church. If we do not praise him, the rocks will come out. Come on, you cry out. Give God his praise. Come on and give it to him. God has done something for you this week. God woke you up this morning. Gave you your health this strength. The air you're breathing right now. God, you're worthy. We give you praise, the Lord. We give you praise today, Lord. We give you praise, Yahweh. We give you praise, Yahweh. We give you praise, Yahweh. Because you alone are worthy. You alone are worthy. Hallelujah. We receive the riches and the glory and the honor and the power and the dominion
Praise the Lord. And at this time, it's time for our spiritual. When you come, if the minister have anything that they heard, you know what you're supposed to do. You can come, but if there's anybody else in here that heard something, how the praise team was singing this morning, if you heard something, and if you haven't ever done this before, you can write it down on the paper and you can send it up here to the pulpit so it can be judged. And if it don't be released today, it doesn't mean that you didn't hear it. It just means that it may not be time for it yet. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord.
Today's service with thanksgiving, and so we went right into proclaiming how great God is and things of that nature. So I'm saying to you, in all things give God thanks. So God, we thank you for being great. We thank you, God, for being who you are. We thank you for establishing your throne throughout the earth. We thank you for sending your Son to die on the cross for us. We thank you, God, for all things, every trial, every tribulation that tests our faith, oh God, that we will come out as pure gold. We thank you, God. We give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Praise God. As the psalmist was singing, "Wait on you, Lord," the sound that was released in the house, God says, "I did it before and I will do it again."
Amen.
Wait on me to do it.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
When we first started singing songs that spoke about believing in God and nothing's too hard or nothing's impossible with God. And I think sometimes we have a hard time believing God because we will compare the belief in God to what we believe about others, how they've broken promises, how we've been disappointed, maybe our earthly father or people that we really trusted, that trust was broke. So we compare believing in God or believing things of God to what we've experienced through people. And as I was flagging, I saw that sign that says supernatural, and when I was pondering that, I heard the Lord say, you need to believe in me, like come into the Spirit, like supernatural. I feel as though that if we want to grow our belief in God, that it's okay that we test God. Not that we tempt Him like Satan did in the wilderness, but I think it's okay sometimes that we can test God and say, God, I'm going to believe you for maybe in the supernatural. Lord, I want more sensitivity in the Spirit. I want to be able to hear more what you're saying, Lord. And I think you're going to take me to the next level. I'm believing you. I'm believing you for this, Lord. And then you begin to fast and, consecrate yourself and dedicate yourself a time to sit before the Lord and just enter into the Spirit and believe He's going to do that. And then I think sometimes He'll do something that'll really blow your mind almost. And then there you go. There goes some more faith and more belief. Sometimes I think because it's not by power and might, it's by my Spirit, says the Lord. So I think everything is going to come to you more in the Spirit realm than in the natural. So if we concentrate more on the spiritual walk with the Lord, and maybe Him promising and we realizing those promises more in the supernatural, then I think the natural just becomes subject to us, and that's just going to happen, because we're believing God for jobs and loved ones saved and all these different things, which yes, we should, but those are almost just an automatic once we've grown really strong supernaturally. The things of this world are just automatically subject to us as true believers and true worshipers. And sometimes if we can get outside of ourselves and believe for another person, believe in their sensitivity, their walk, their consecration, you know what I'm trying to say? Sometimes it just grows us up more if we can believe for someone else and just get outside of ourselves. Amen. But I just believe it's by the Spirit. We have to be in the Spirit more. We have to wait longer. Do you want to see Jesus? Like, do you want to be before God in the Spirit and He actually enters the room? I mean, for a little while there, it's like Jesus was, I could see the face of Jesus, and then for a while I could only see His sandals and like the hem of His garment, and there's a message in that. God's speaking to you in that. You know, so every encounter, every time spent alone with God, you're growing and growing. So it's by His Spirit, says the Lord. Amen.
As they were singing, I don't know the name of the song, but as they were singing, I heard the Lord say, breathe in the breath of God and release what's not of God. And then you can begin to worship Him in spirit and in truth. Amen.
As we were singing, I heard Psalms 37, starting at verse 5. And I'm reading this out of the Contemporary Bible. It says, with all my heart, I am waiting, Lord, for you. I trust your promises. I wait for you more eagerly than a soldier on guard duty waits for the dawn. Yes, I wait more eagerly than the soldier on guard duty waits for the dawn. Israel, Sherry, trust the Lord. God is always merciful and has the power to save you. Sherry, the Lord will save you from all your sins. This morning, I kept hearing the word completion, and as I was flagging, I heard He, the Holy Spirit, say, while you're waiting, worship. Worship in your waiting. Don't just sit there and wait, but worship. Thank God. Watch for His promises to manifest and bring us to the supernatural like a soldier watches for the dawn on guard duty.
Praise the Lord. Okay, and while we was praising, this is what I heard. Okay, she was singing this song, through you I can do anything. Nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible to them that believe. And I heard Psalms 27. I heard that this morning, so I knew that was confirmation. David said, I would have fainted unless I had believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, while He yet lives, while we are living today. Then he said, wait on the Lord and be encouraged, and He shall strengthen thy heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. And then the song was saying, strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. So wait on the Lord. Then it said, not just talking about do nothing while we wait. We wait in prayer. We wait in praise. We wait in worship. We wait in God's word. We wait in fasting. We wait in meditation of God's words. We wait in testifying and witnessing. And strength will come as we wait upon the Lord. Then I also heard she was saying about I am. I heard Him say, I am. I am whoever you need me to be. That's who I am. He said, I am bigger than anything that you can go through. I'm bigger than anything that can happen to you on this earth. He says, I am that I am. I'm bigger than that. So when the enemy comes to attack you, you let the enemy know, God is bigger than that. Devil. So that's what I heard. So at this time, we're going to get ready for our offering. We're going to do our offering affirmation. If you need an envelope, you can raise your hand and the ushers will assist you. So in the meantime, could we stand, please, for our affirmation? Okay, on Melissa's left, this is for the pastor's offering. And on the right hand, it's for the regular tithes and offering. Okay, are we ready? I offer affirmation. It says, as we give our tithes and offering, we are believing you, Lord, for jobs and better jobs, raises and bonuses, benefits, sales and commissions, estates and inheritance, interest and income, rebates and returns, checks in the mail, healing and divine health, gifts and surprises, finding money, bills paid off, settlements, debts demolished, royalties received, scholarships and grants, contracts, money management, 100-fold return, according to your word, in Jesus' name. You can be led by the ushers. Okay, if we're done. Father, in the name of Jesus, we lift this offering up to you right now in Jesus' name. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for this multiplying, Heavenly Father, the ministry in the name of Jesus. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for those that gave, those that had not, Lord, at this time. We thank you, Lord God, as we bless this offering, Lord. We thank you, Lord God, because your word said that give and it will be given back to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall men give in your bosom. So, Lord, we thank you for this offering right now in Jesus' name. And hallelujah, we praise the Lord. At this time, we're going to have our announcements.
Praise the Lord. These are our announcements. Assembly meeting following service this morning. 36-year Pastors Appreciation is going to be October 10th, 11th, and 13th. And this is 36 years. Amen. October 9th, Wednesday Bible study will be canceled. There will be no Supernatural Sunday today. Fasting and prayer every Wednesday, 6 p.m. United Prayer. Tell someone about Jesus and invite them to church. Also, this is a new month of October. Do we have any October birthdays and anniversaries? Please stand. Okay. Prophet's birthday is Tuesday. Come on, birthday. Birthdays. Hallelujah. Amen. Okay, all birthdays, no anniversaries?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Praise God, we're all family. We're back in the hands of the pulpit.
Hallelujah. At this time, we're going to get ready for our word.
Scripture of the month word. Amen. And let me also remind you, who did not receive the membership letter, would you come get one now? I'm sorry I have to do it this way, but you all will walk right out the door and still won't get it. This is the info you need for the anniversary, so please take one today. If you have not received it, come and take one today. I don't know who put the labels on there. Who put those labels on there? Who did that? It was very thoughtful of you to do so, is my point. So, thank you. Did you do that, Marianne? Put the COA member label on. Marianne did that, or you did that, Tracy? Marianne did that. Okay, thank you. Very good. Amen. All right. The scripture for the month is, what is it? Psalm 103. And you see I have here Psalm. I don't have Psalms. Okay? Amen. Matthews, Luke's. No. If we're going to recite scripture, let's do it correctly. It's true. Amen. All right. Psalm. We're only talking about one psalm here, singular. 103, 1 to 3. Can we put that on the screen and then we'll all recite it together? This is in keeping with the wonderful benefits that Christ has for us, as well as one of the benefits being healing. Now, as you recall the announcement, we are fasting and praying. I'm very tempted to ask who's doing this, but I will not. Who is fasting in the church with us and who's praying? Who is every 6 p.m. uniting your prayer with our prayer? What's the subject matter? Healing is the subject matter. Until all of us are healed. Until we see the majority of us healed. Until we see the manifestation of the supernatural in our lives. Amen. Let's read it together. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless His holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and what? Who forgives our iniquities and heals all my diseases. He heals all my diseases, all my maladies, all of my infirmities, all of my weaknesses of the mind and of the body and of the flesh. Come on now. God is not a man that he should, nor the son of man that he should. See, hath he not? Shall he not? Hath he not spoken? Shall he not make it good or perform? Hallelujah, saints. I believe God. Say it. I believe God. I believe God. I believe God. I believe God. I believe. I believe. I believe God. Hallelujah. Psalm 103, 1 to 3. I need a show of hands of who's going to, will forego this probably for the anniversary appreciation. So that gives you 2 weeks. Amen. Very simple, but still profound. All right, show of hands. Who's going to be ready the next 2 weeks to recite this? Show of hands. Amen. All right. Okay, very good. Almost all the church is going to be ready 2 weeks from now. All right, wonderful.
Father, in Jesus' name, we lift up our apostle to you right now in the name of Jesus. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for him. We thank you for his love, Lord God, that he shared with us, his love for you, Jesus. In Jesus' name, we thank you. As we lift him up, Lord God, we thank you, Lord God. We just speak peace over him right now, Lord God, and rest in you in Jesus' name. We thank you for the word that is coming, Lord God, that will help us to grow further in the name of Jesus. Help us to be doers of the word that we hear and not just listeners only. In Jesus' name.
Amen. All right. Turn everything else off. Can I have my manuscript on the table there? Thank you. You ready for the word? Yes. That's good right there. Thank you. All right, just turn this monitor down just a little bit more, tad more. Thank you. Amen. We're talking about today living in faith. Living in faith. We've been talking about faith for the last several times I've been here up speaking to you. We're going to continue to talk about faith because it's basically faith is the rudiment, it is the base, it is the foundation. It's the foundation, it's the underpinning, it is the gravity of every believer that believes in Christ Jesus. It is the substance of our belief system. Faith in Christ, not faith in faith. Or faith in your faith. How arrogant is that? But I've been there, done that. How about you? Faith in your faith. As if you're the one who created the faith. Faith does not proceed from me. Faith proceeds from God. Faith or supernatural faith doesn't proceed from me. Supernatural faith or the faith of God is not earthly, it's heavenly. And the scripture says that God gives every man who desires a measure of faith. What are you believing God for? See? Somebody say, I believe God.
I believe God.
When you desire God, when you desire Him, and what, as we just read in Psalm 103, He desires for us, He gives us the enablement, the grace to believe. Grace for faith. Say it. Grace
for faith.
For faith. I'm defining grace as the enabling quality, the enabling essence of God to do what you desire to do for God. Faith is always directed to God first. This is what you have to understand. If not, you'll begin to put faith in your shadow and you begin to come to the foreground as if you're the one manifesting, demonstrating, causing that thing to come to pass. I believe this, that there are so many believers today. I'm going to say it just like that, so many believers today, that they manufacture what they're believing God for and saying God did it. God did not do it, you did it. Because, let's go back to what we heard earlier, we did not wait on God. We created an Ishmael, if you please. We created man's manufactured product and put a tag on it as if God did it, and He did not. So our testimony, oh God did not do that. You got to be careful. We have to be careful how we testify. We got to be careful what we're saying. We have to be careful who was the source. We have to be careful what was the motivating factors. We have to live by faith.
Yes.
We can't just talk it and not walk it. We can't just sing it and trying to wing it. We must be, James says, doers of the word and not hearers only. That's why Jesus said in the gospel, be careful how you hear, and be careful what you hear. Because how and what we hear will begin to manipulate and maneuver our steps and our trajectory towards what we are believing God for. Living by faith. How long do we live by faith? What's the expiration date? There is none. So now we have a choice. If there is no expiration date on my belief system, believing in Jesus Christ, my enabling person, my God in me, the hope of my glorification, then what happens is that then I substitute my faith with fear. And there's cute definitions of what fear is, but let me just say it like this. Fear is the opposite of faith. If faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, then fear is the opposite of that. You have no hope. You have no expectation. You have nothing to anticipate. You are now resting upon your own limited, disgusted self. Faith is the quality of God. Fear is the quality of man.
Amen.
So, you can make a choice. I'm going to believe God regardless, in spite of the expiration date that I'm hoping to come to pass, but obviously not, because faith has no expiration date. Or, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute, or I can result in myself, I begin to X out God and this faith thing because it doesn't work. I have waited for 2 weeks. It has not come to pass yet. God isn't real. God's word doesn't work. Therefore, God isn't real. He isn't alive. He's a figment of someone's imagination. This is all a plot to keep the man thumb on me. It's a white man's philosophy to keep the black man enslaved. Whatever the thought is, the faith I had in the God I cannot see did not materialize for me in 2 weeks. Therefore, I'm left with me and my will, my strength, my ability. And so I'm going to do it my way. I did it before, I can do it again. I'm left with me. I'm left with, because without faith, which is supernatural, I said to you before, from God, from heaven, is not of the earth, I'm left with me and my earth. I have negated the source of all life and relegated my life just to me. And now, without me knowing it, unbeknownst to me, I am now in the territory of Satan himself. So now here comes fear, and here comes doubt, here comes unbelief, here comes disgust, here comes mental anguish, here comes paranoia, here comes all of these negative forces now to darken my way of life. So now let's go back to what I described to you before about this expiration date. Listen closely. Faith has, I'll repeat, no expiration date. So your discouragement is unfounded. Your disappointment is unfounded. Because somehow in the back of your mind, you're saying that this shouldn't take so long to manifest and materialize. What's up with this God? heard it earlier, waiting on the Lord. I'll be honest with you. That's one of the scriptures that I would rather not have in the Bible. I'll speak for you since you're not speaking with me. Waiting on the Lord. Singing about waiting. Preaching about waiting on God. You ought to wait on the Lord. You're excited because of the rhythm and with the, the rhythmaticness of it. And somebody else's amen got you to say amen. And so we all excited until God says to you one day, you're going to have to wait. Because let's be honest today, and I will go through a few scriptures here, but let's be honest today concerning this faith factor. The struggle for some of us in the back of our mind is this notion I just brought to you. It has to end soon. It has to end someday, one day. Let it be today, Lord. Let me see my prayers come to pass. Let me see my declaration come to fruition. Let me see this person, this issue, this circumstance, this situation change. Oh God, I'll praise your holy name. I'll bless you today and forever. Deliver me, O Lord. I'm your captive. Set me free, O God. I promise to be your bishop, archbishop, apostle, chief. I'll be whatever you want me to be, Lord. Not going to change God. Not going to change his plan for you. Because let me tell you about the maturity, the maturation of faith. Can I tell you that? Can I talk to you not about elementary faith or just general faith? I'm going to talk to you about the PhD faith. I'm going to talk to you about the faith of the seniors. I'm going to talk to you about the faith of the Bible. I'm going to talk to you about a person. You being that person now, you're the subject of my message today. That year after year, decade after decade, you still believe God.
Yes.
Abraham believed 25 years for a son he had. They called him what? Isaac. Isaac means laughter. Isaac brought joy to the family. Have you been waiting for such a long time? And when it comes, we see all 18 of your teeth, man. I'm telling you, you can't stop smiling. You're smiling all the time. What'd you say, Mother Baker? You're smiling all the time. Can't take the smile from you. Been waiting a long time. We were talking about that, my wife and I, concerning Tracy and her husband. And during the ceremony, she smiled. I know her face was hurting the next day. She was just all smiles, couldn't stop smiling, just smiling, dancing and smiling, cutting a cake and smiling, taking pictures and smiling. She was just smiling, and we were smiling with her. Oh, Shayaya. For she was waiting a long time. Now here comes your promised son. Here comes your blessing. Come on, y'all. Amen. But for those of us that are still waiting, can you smile in the wait? You're waiting for that husband. You're waiting for, and I can look around to some of these single people. You're waiting for your boo and your beau. But that has not materialized yet. And then we can flip the gender as well. What is it? What is it? And you can attest to the fact you're right on the money, Apostle, right on the money. Because I've been in the holding tank here. I've been waiting for some time now. I used to count. I didn't stop counting. I used to pray and rejoice about it, but time has stolen my joy. I used to rejoice with them that was rejoicing when they came to their maturation and their maximization, their manifestation. I don't rejoice for them anymore. Instead of me rejoicing, now I cry about why them and not me. The devil says, well, something's wrong with you. The devil says you don't have enough faith. The devil says all kinds of things, right? To try to sway you from your belief system. So the issue is not your need, is it? No. I'll tell you what the issue is for us. We don't believe God. You say, I believe God. I believe God. You begin to consider, remember of the things you believed God before and you saw God move. But listen to me. I can push you out of the subject matter and put Abram there and put some others there. And they could say the same thing. I believe God, and Yahweh did these other things. Yeah, but we're not talking to Abram about these other things. God has been good. We're talking about this son that hasn't come yet. What is it for you? What is it for you? Huh? That's a thorn in your flesh. No, you don't say anything about it. You put makeup over your thorn. You laugh over your thorn. Mm-hmm. You have the greatest cover-up. But if we will peel you like an onion, if we will cut you down the center of who you are, that thing will be crying out loud. That need will be crying out. And that is your greatest test of all tests. What is it? Because here's what we have to understand. And you may not believe me, and that's okay. You may not believe this. If it keeps you and keep you in the clear, it's okay. It could be said that if I believe God for all 90 issues of my life and not this 10%, it could be said I don't believe God for none of it. So that issue that still plagues you. Okay? You hyper faith people, we ain't talking to you. We talking about real folk. You can handle all the other items, all the other issues, all the other things that connects to your life and is linked to you. Family, workplace, social ministry, assignments in life and all of that. But this one thing, you say to yourself, well, maybe faith is not enough here. Maybe, faith is all we need. Faith is all we need. It is the linchpin. It is the master key. That when you succeed in this, the others must bow down. It is that door, all the other doors open, no problem. This one just as stubborn as can be, will not open. Why won't it open? and we find God in a new light. And we discover how real our belief system actually is. Because either we're going to believe God or no. You can't believe God the way you want to believe God. And that's another struggle. Yeah, it's not a lot of water in there. I don't know what that means. But that means shorten your message up or something. Okay, so you believe God in the elementary. Right? You believe God in how can I say it? In the medium. In the progressive faith. My God, listen to the Holy Ghost. Yeah, I know I'm messing up. But God wants us to major and master faith. So, these other ones, took a little while, whatever, but you had enough wind, you can handle it. Look at God. God is good. Let me testify. Hallelujah. I'm wearing it, walking it, I'm driving it, I'm living in it. Glory to God. Hundreds of people being saved in my ministry. Woo! And God says, now, I'm going to teach you the God kind of faith. Mark 11:22. This is where we are. This is where this church is. This is where we are. We are there. You hear me? We're there now. And God says, that faith was good, but come on, walk with me. Let me teach you my faith. And I know I got my monologue before, but I'm just taking you somewhere. When I talk about faith, it's from heaven and God anyway. So what do you mean? The God kind of faith. This is different. You haven't ever experienced this before. You haven't walked with God like this before. You're at a crucible point where you are now, you will either succeed or you will die. This thing could possibly kill your faith, kill your belief system, get you to backslide, get you to be so despondent, so depressed, you might not ever come out of it. A crucible point. David said, who can escape you, God? Even when I'm in hell, you're there with me in hell. Your presence is right there in hell. That's the word. Where you are. What's your crucible point? What is your thorn in the flesh? What is that thing that eludes you? What is it? You attack 10 more days on your fast, and it hasn't moved up 1 inch. God seems to be further away than he was before. Waiting on God, at times, I want to dare say many times, at times waiting on God, when you're wanting God, while you're waiting on God, you're wanting God, and you want to see God, he's nowhere to be found. your sense can't pick him up. Now, we understand. God is everywhere. You can get that. He said, Lo, I'm with you even to the end. But at this crucible point, it seems as if he's nowhere to be found. I can't trace or track him. Now, this is Master School 101. The expiration date, I thought, sometimes you can get two or more witnesses on what you think is right too. There it is. I just saw two on that license plate. I saw two. That's what I thought it would only be 2 weeks. Thank you, Lord, for that too. Thank you. And why y'all laughing? Y'all know it's true. Thank you for 2, Lord. Right? While you were watching the QVC or whatever these other shows are, and they offer you one and they say, for $19.99, if you call in the next 5 minutes, we'll give you 2. There it is again, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. We will handle the shipping and the handling. Don't lie in the house of the Lord. We're all human. I'm in the same ship you're in. And it gives us a temporary comfort. Yes, God, 2 weeks, thank you. You go to your calendar. Okay. It's going to be October the 24th. 2 weeks. October the 24th. When October the 24th comes, nothing happens. Let me give you another one. In prayer, the Lord says to you, own up. I am your Lord. I am your shepherd. I got this. I'm going to handle this in a matter of days. You say, thank you, God. How many days? How many days, God? God says nothing to you. How many days? And you work up the days. 2 weeks. 14 days. It just seems right. I just feel so good. 2 weeks. God never said anything. Have you ever tried to put words in God's mouth? Don't lift your hand. Everybody, all over the house. Put your words in God's words. You finish his sentence. So he said days to you, and that's what you're thinking. Now you're talking about a God who operates out of eternity into our time. Days could be 365 times 3. Multiplied by, divided by, square rooted to the 5th. Yeah, not so. For Jesus is coming back for a church without spot, wrinkle, or any blemish. He's coming back for it. Say it, he's coming back for it. He's not coming with an alakazam. He is not going to come with a wand. No wrinkle now. Let there be no blemish. You see that in scripture? Alakazam. When he comes, we are that already. Yeah. Is that what it says in Ephesians 5? Other associated scriptures? That when he comes, we are the 5 wise virgins. We're full of oil, full of the Holy Ghost, trimmed, which could infer no blemish, trimmed, no wrinkle. hair all over the place. But his wife said, you better trim that before you come to church. Trim. Are you trimmed? Have you allowed the Lord to trim you? To make you clean? As the husbandman, the father, I'm concluding. Didn't get to my manuscript, but I'm speaking from the Lord, I believe, to us. Comes to the olive tree and begins to prune it, another word. Clean it, another word. Trim it, another word. Prepare it for much fruit. Say with me, God is in the much. God is in the much. He's not in the little. He's not in the little. He's in the much. He's in the much. He's not going to come to you 2020 and you still give him the same fruit of 2019. Ain't going to go. So you know what kind of game God will play? You say, I didn't think God played games. This is how I describe it. All right, you're going to bring the same fruit in 2020 as you did in 2019? I was here, now I'm going to be here. Now I'm here. And you're going to cry out there, you're going to scream there, you're going to say, God, where are you? And I'm going to say, I'm here. No, you're not here. Where are you, God? All right, come on, Sharon. But Sharon's looking for God. I'm here. And see what she's doing? See all these obstacles in the way? So she ain't going to get to me. She ain't getting to me. Because this is in the way. There ain't nothing intimate and personal about that. See? All right, yeah. She got to come where God is. Get the point? All right. And it depends on, I don't know how many steps she took. It depends on, those steps could be days, those steps could be hours, those steps could be minutes. I don't know. It's up to the person. How hungry they are for God. What are you willing to? She has changed her location, her position, her place of rest to exercise herself to get to God. I'm not going to say what I think. Yeah. So, we live by faith. Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for. The what? The evidence of things not seen. Not seen. How is it that you believe God and you never seen it? How is it? And our belief has to be on God. Better said Christ. His word, his spirit, all that he stands for. Nothing can substitute that. I believe God. In my pain, in my shame, in my losses, in my misunderstanding, in my failing ways. How many times did you repent this year so far? How many times? No matter how many times you repent, You believe God. Because the issue ain't you. The devil said, look at you, you fell again. You open your mouth and misspoke again. You're thinking about that you. That's what the devil wants. But learn this. If you are a child of God, your business with God has nothing to do with the devil. That's what you tell him. They said, this don't have anything to do with you. I ain't serving you, so why do you care if I fall or not? I'm serving God. Stay out of my business. In Jesus' name. So let me end by saying this. We're going to live by faith. No matter the expiration date, we're going to live by faith. No matter if we can't trace or find God. Y'all know what I mean by that? Y'all know what I mean? Okay. I'm not breaking your doctrine and what you believe. Because God is everywhere. But for those of us who walk with God, y'all know what I'm talking about. That's why you can't, even though you feel like you're not saved. How many feel like you're saved every day? Let me see your hand. Feel like you're saved every day. All right, come on up here and finish this word. Feel like you feel like you're saved every day. You need to know that, even though you don't feel it. So I'm bringing that example to prove the point that I was originally intended to share with you. As the days progress, concerning the unmet need, where is your faith? Do you still believe God? Because I told you last time I spoke in Hebrews 11:6, without faith, what? For he that comes to God must believe that he is good. Can you, my friends, keep seeking God, keep praying and fasting, having devotion, meditating, doing what you know is right to do and righteous to do, even though in the back of your mind you're saying, where is God? When will you deal with this thorn in my flesh? Man, we're not talking about the one you're married to or the one you take care of. When are you going to deal with that? When will you rescue me? But I love you, Lord. Sounds schizophrenic now. You ever felt like you had 2 minds, 3 minds going on at the same time? Correct. But God said, keep diligently seeking. Yeah, look at it. Because it ain't based on right now, what you think of me, but rather what I think of you. I know you're going to make it. Hang in there. Hold on. I know you're being tested. I know I'm stretching you. But you've got to go through this. Because I know some things down the pike you don't know. I know that once you allow me to deal with this thing in your life, all the other things will be a piece of cake. Because I want to get you to the mastery of faith. Because hear this now. Jesus is not coming back for a child. Well, Jesus preached on childlike faith. We ain't talking about that. That's another teaching. He's not coming for you still behaving like a child in your faith. Do you not realize there are some things in your life God won't even respond to anymore? Because he said, I already talked to you about that. Don't pray about it no more. Don't talk to me no more about it. See? That's part of maturity. Amen. You just spoke to that child, spoke to that child, spoke to that child. Amen. Well, a baby is not a little tiny little girl anymore. How old was she when she came to us? 4 or something like that? She was 3 years old. With a little cute self. 3 years old. Well, Mary Ann can't speak to the 3-year-old Bailey anymore. Because Bailey is not 3 years old anymore. There are some things that she is responsible to do. She should know by now to do. She should trust her. Is that true? Listen to me. So God, Christ, is not coming back for a child faith. He's not coming back for a child church. A mature church. My God. Going through some things, some humps and some bumps. You need to get some stripes. I ain't going to pray that, but I'm just saying, you need some stripes. You need some hitches. You need some bumps. Come on now. This is a little morbid, I'm sorry. But some of the guys in way back, when they worked in the plant, they said, you're not a true plant associate. How long you been in the plant? Let me tell you, look at it. Look how many fingers I got. You ain't did nothing. You ain't been nowhere. Nubs and stubs. Because they've been in the plant, working in the plant, the auto plant, for years. You men must have had some cushion job. You ain't really worried. Let me see you. Let me turn around. Ain't nothing. You're perfect. Amen, saints. Yeah, that's good. Battle scars. Shout it out. Helping people with your testimony in life. Been there, done that. What do you want to know? See? You ready to go all the way? No matter what it takes? See, in coming to Christ, it's for the long haul. There is no expiration date. We're in it to win it. No matter what the struggle, no matter what the situation, this is what God is saying. Stand to your feet. God is saying, can I depend on you and trust you to go with me to the end? John 6, Jesus preaches one of his most proficient messages. You want to be my disciples? Eat my flesh, drink my blood. I'm gone. I see you later. Alligator. After a while, crocodile. That was quite moral. Eat your flesh, drink your blood. See, the natural man can't what? Tap into the spiritual things. So the majority of them, the 70, he had 12, then he had 70. Remember? Sent them on 2 by 2. The 70 gone. And all of their associates gone. So Jesus goes to the 12 will you leave also? Peter rose up, basically said, I won't say it verbatim, where else will we go? You have the words of living, of life. You're the Christ, basically what he said. Where else will we go? I can't take your test. You can't take mine. But we're all in the preparatory position here. We are preparing ourselves to succeed and win. So when the test comes, we're ready to pass and not pass out. We're all going to make it. You believe that? There's no failure in God. Doesn't mean we don't fail in certain aspects of life. That doesn't make you a failure. That's Shabbat. Say, I'm not a failure. I'm a succeeder. I'm a winner. One who always believed God. No matter what. Knowing there is no expiration date. Knowing to believe only. That means believing to the end, whatever the end is. Ideally, we should all be healed, all have peace of mind forever, joy divine, all of that. But to get there, for some of us, we got to go through some stuff. I don't know why. I don't know why. I can't speak for you. Something in your belief system. You can't tag God with your earth experience. You can't do that. That minimizes you. Here, it minimizes you. I didn't get this growing up. I should have got that. I could have. I would have. God, whatever you want to give me. I'll take the nickels and dimes and the quarters, whatever, God, you see. Because I've been without all my life. So whatever little you can do, I'll be satisfied. Nope. Father, we thank you for this word. Living by faith, expecting the best that you have for us. Help us all to be masters of faith. Not just 90%, not believing in some things and not all the things pertaining to you. For if that's the case, we don't believe in any of it. You said in the Old Testament, if you obey some of the law and not all of it, it's like obeying none of the law. We want to be all the way for you because you've been all the way for us. Now I want you right now to talk to God concerning what you heard today. Something triggered, something convicted you. Give that to him. Realign yourself with God right now. Those that are watching the same, the appeal applies to you as well. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. Yes, Lord. Give it to him. Give it to him now. Don't come short of the glory. don't come short of the best God has for you. Help us, Holy Spirit, not to put an expiration date on what we're believing you for. Let us fully trust that what we commit to you, you're faithful to bring the thing to pass. Forgive us for self-getting in the way, self-willedness getting in the way, our projection of you in the way, and our fears and our shortcomings and our personal belief system taking the place of your true belief system. We rid it. We pull down those altars and stones. Right now, in Jesus' name, you be exalted now. You be lifted up in our lives, oh God. Say with me, I believe God.
I believe God.
Only.
Only.
I'll give this word a hand. God bless you. You may be seated. You saved today because saving faith is what God gives us. Saving faith. Are you saved? You died right now. You know heaven awaits you. You sure of that? Make sure your family is saved. Everybody in your family, make sure they're saved. Make sure your sisters and your brothers, make sure they're saved. You're on a mission from God. Make sure they are saved. If you really love them like you say you do, and don't give them the love message, you don't love them. Sorry. All of you are at home, so we don't need to extend, amen, the doors of the church to be open to you, although we are waiting for some to still come through the door. That's right. That's okay. Amen. Give your life to Jesus today. Give him to him today, right now. Right now. And find you a church home that's Christ-centered, Bible-believing, Spirit-filled. Amen.
Amen.
But anyway, all right, find you a good church. And stay there, be taught, be discipled.